So this is Dustin Nemos, everybody. Welcome back. And I wanted to introduce a couple of new YouTubers who came across the channel and just wanted to, kind of have a chat. I want to get into the habit of having more interviews with some of the smaller channels and help them get their name out there. And, with that said, you guys can take it away and tell us about yourselves.
Thanks. We appreciate it. Well, we're a channel called the Epistemologers. Which is, I don't know if I was sold on it, but I don't like labels anyway, so yeah.
I like the name.
But the main thing is that we try to bring a knowledge about knowledge into a conversation and try to give people weapons or armor in the info war. And right now it's really getting heated up, so it's a good time to step in.
I can speak from that. No. Everybody's polite and calm to me, guys. But no.
Well, isn't it telling though? Like, doesn't it tell you what side? There's like clear sides. I don't like. Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's between logic and people who are emotional, I guess.
A irrational side versus the rational side, which is it's pretty interesting that that's so cut and dry. And normally people will just occasionally be irrational. That's the normal thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to add into that you have a pretty strong overlap between, I guess, one group of society and other groups of society as far as reasoning versus emotion. But I don't want to necessarily bring in the politics to it, but it does seem that while there is some overlap, we all have our irrational side. There's just no comparison in terms of certain, demographic political parties versus other political parties in terms of reasoning abilities and emotional rage and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a really interesting thing that we talk about with in terms of emotion and how that generally can be seen, the emotional side can be kind of seen as the initiator of a lot of sort of like, if you look at like the scientific method, the observations often come from an intuitive place. So when you make an observation about the world, you're seeing that, this is this thing and I believe it. And then your hypothesis about this can also be from an intuitive place, which, emotional as you can define it as. And then it is with logic that you constrain that thing. So emotions, I think, are an important part of the process of gaining knowledge, but they're not necessarily the end-all be-all. You can't just, go with feels all the time, right?
I think it's your intuition that's going to give you that initial guess. And you don't want to waste your time with things, so you have to rely on a gut instinct one way or another at the very outset. And from there, you have to use several very carefully constructed tests to whittle it down, rule it out, to rule down some of the bad guesses out.
There's rules to follow that if you follow them, you're rarely tricked or things like that. But I will mention that it seems that you guys are talking about intuition. It seems that most of the people in the Q movement, because I know we want to talk about Q at some point, but they do seem to go off of an overall intuition. Like they've seen a couple proofs, but they haven't done all the research. Yep. I've even pointed out some of the proofs being wrong.
And Q himself has noted that he will put in disinformation. So there is, from a purely evidentiary standpoint, there is almost no reason to listen to Q. But fortunately,
if you're only looking for truth.
Yes.
In all cases. But that doesn't explain why he would sow disinformation.
I think it's a rare situation, and you have to judge this right rather than from a normal logical strain, more of an art of war type of, you kind of have to see it through that lens, because there's every reason that he does not want us to be able to just go out and prove this all to the world immediately with ease.
Oh yeah. I'm not, keep in mind, we're on, not even on the fence. For Q, we understand that he's a good lead, much like your intuition, much like your gut is a good lead on understanding where to look, right?
Yeah, that's the argument that, like, it doesn't matter if Q is real or not because the information is good, like the fruit of the tree argument.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Absolutely, for sure.
And sometimes you don't even know if the information is good until some event happens.
Right.
And then you can kind of connect the dots. The future proves past pattern.
Sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really confusing. It's like Nostradamus before that sometimes.
Definitely.
How
Yeah,
did
it's
you-
kind of aggravating, actually.
Well, yes, it is.
Because he's not actually providing enough information to predict at all. He's just providing enough that you can retroactively tell that he knew what was going to happen.
Enough to build the buzz. But my biggest complaint is that he's making it too difficult for lower IQ people. I would like to get some low IQ proofs because we need those as well. And then there are good low IQ people out there.
Like less autistic.
Yeah, less like anything less than the autistic army for sure. Those guys are amazing, right?
Yeah.
Just making it more lucid.
Yeah, I want to.
But I suppose that's kind of our job, though. That's kind of the job of people who are talking about Q, is to sort of bring it down to the level where people can generally understand it. We're supposed to explain Q, and that's, I think, what he's trying to say in some of his stuff where he's talking about we have to get out there or something like that. It's been kind of recent. Mm-hmm. Where he's trying to say, you have to make the push. I can only sort of start the engine, but you guys have to actually go.
Yeah, well, it does seem that his legitimate main goal does seem to be to just build the grassroots support.
Yeah,
and that that makes sense. I think it's about 75% MAGA and 25% crazy liberals, and then of the MAGA, I think we're like I wouldn't even guess some low percentage number of QAnon MAGA. And then that's the goal, is to switch over the MAGA group and then kind of funnel that energy into the truth at some point. How did you guys even hear about Q?
Oh, well, yeah, a long time ago.
What was that?
It was.
What is that story?
God, it was pretty early on. I think we've been following him on and off since almost the beginning. I don't want to say like the very first time, because we don't follow the boards or anything like that. But through the propagations of the very first couple of times, I think even since like October 2017 sort of thing. Well, maybe not that early, but definitely after the election, maybe January or something like that.
Well, long enough to follow along and see some of the interesting connections be formed. I remember the Foxtrot Splash thing with this missile. The missile that in Hawaii, or the alarm that went off.
Yeah,
you remember that?
Supposedly it was a missile.
Yeah, and I don't know if we really have good information on that, except I did see, I think there was a cruise ship or something where someone, I don't know if we have eyewitness reports or actual pictures. I don't remember that far back, but there was a little bit of constraint added there because somebody did say that something happened out there.
There was a lot of like weird situations going on there, especially with the guy who did the warning and everything else.
Yeah, and we had another missile situation over in the Pacific Northwest too, recently.
Yeah, I've been. I don't know if you guys have seen Q proofs yet. I've been trying to pour through and find like a favorite one, because Lee wants me to do one a day on Twitter as a debate thing, and I'm trying to what's the.
I kind of expect that to fall apart.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, very
on his
quickly.
part.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's it's worth trying to get them to engage, just to at least make whatever fools of themselves they're going to make.
Well, I will give props where it's due. Like, he's actually willing to talk about it. He's willing to actually like have a conversation. Like, he'll break the logical fallacy rules, but some people think that he's even, threatened or something, and maybe doesn't want to risk his life, or who knows what. There's all these different.
A lot of these people are under pressure.
So
It's actually true of a lot of people. A lot of sources of information out there are under pressure just because people find them credible. So that it's kind of like if you get to a certain level of
don't mess up.
visibility,
yeah.
I mean, you're gonna find pressure on you to slant the narrative in one way or another.
Hmm.
And it's a little frightening how widespread that is, and we're only very recently becoming aware of it.
This is true. So, do you guys want to tell us more about your channel? Do you talk about Q a lot, or just kind of throw it in there when you see something?
Do we have only like a half dozen videos?
We only have 10 videos.
Or something. Or almost a dozen,
but
there you go.
I mean, we just started May. Actually doing
so we have a couple videos, which is a pretty significant proportion of Q videos.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
We have, I believe now it's 20% of our videos are QAnon based.
Okay, so
So I guess it's getting pretty serious.
Yeah.
Yeah. How has it been received? Have you guys gotten a lot of trolls or hate or flack or
Well,
no visibility enough to really
we haven't
attract anybody.
We're tiny. Even like compared to pretty much everyone. We have I think all of 5 subscribers. Hello, if any of you are watching.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll have more after this, but
yeah.
you know, you'll at some point you'll get your first troll.
Yeah.
It's a thing to celebrate.
Yeah.
So the general pattern on our videos is this this foundationalism.
Yeah.
All right, I guess anti-foundationalism argument.
Right.
And that's something we can get into a bit.
I'd love to.
So the main thing is the rule of thumb is constraint versus support. You get into a trap if you're looking to support your ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime you're looking to a credible source, that's an example of trying to support what you know.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you're looking for a proof or appeals to other things, there are fallacies that tie into this. Appeals to emotion, appeals to
Mm-hmm.
authority. Pretty much any variant like this is an example of justificationism.
Okay.
You're trying to justify what you know, and you are always going to fall into this trap. We even talked about in our latest video. It goes way back to the ancient Greeks. They identified this thing called Agrippa's trilemma, and
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
Agrippa's trilemma.
Oh, I've heard of
Agrippa's
this. Okay,
trilemma.
please explain. Yeah.
And
Also known as the Munchausen trilemma.
Munchausen, yeah,
Munchausen.
German. Baron von Munchausen.
Yeah.
But the trilemma is really a trap of 3 bad options when you're trying to justify what you know. The first bad option that you run into is an infinite regression of justification that never ends. It's just like saying, well, why do you think this? Because this. Well, why that? Well, because that. Why that?
And on and on and on it goes.
Yeah, I can see how it would go for infinite loop.
Yeah.
You know, we all struggle with bias. How do you overcome?
Oh, overcome bias?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that bias is not necessarily going to be when you're looking for constraint.
Running
bias,
in circles.
Yeah. So you're not going to run into, like, you're perfectly welcome to have bias, and that's what we were kind of talking about with intuition and emotion. To make your initial guess, it's obviously going to have some sort of bias.
Mm-hmm.
It's only if you respond to the constraint, meaning if you have made this initial guess and it's been shown to be wrong through some measure of constraint, it's only when you refuse to change that because of your bias that bias becomes a problem.
That's very fair. So basically, you're allowed to have a hypothesis and do some guesswork based off of intuition.
Yeah,
as long as you basically, allow yourself to go where the information takes you.
You'd be surprised at how many people refuse to be wrong.
Oh no, I wouldn't.
Maybe the listeners would be surprised to know.
Yes. Well, yeah, you get into a controversial, any sort of political position, and you're a public figure, and then suddenly you see all of the logical fallacies just every day.
Yeah.
And being able to be armed with that and just know what they are and call them out has for me been like amazing. I don't even get angry. It's just a matter of like pointing it out. It takes the power away, and it takes their attempt to hurt you, and it turns it into a help, because they're actually proving your point for you. They have no argument. So
yeah, it's nice to be able to have a goal that's something you're not trying to persuade them. You're just trying to point out the contradictions, the logical contradictions.
Mm-hmm.
And for any spectator who's legitimately like wanting to know what's up,
made up their mind.
We'll see what's going on there.
Useful debate, yeah.
So we definitely applaud that effort.
I have been getting a lot of flack from my viewers about wasting time on people, but I try to spread this concept of a useful debate to help the people who are on the fence.
You're over the target.
Yeah.
Well, for sure. All of the anti-Q guys are coming at me now, so I must have offended something.
Yeah.
Like people are sending me names of people I've never even heard of, and they're like, "This guy's like bashing you," and I'm like, "Okay." Day three of that.
That's amazing.
But yeah. Well.
But going back to the I just wanted to go back to the third option.
Please.
Because this is the third bad option is the one that everyone seems to like to settle on.
Stop it, yeah.
Because the other two options are about never ending the race. The last option is about just deciding to give up and saying that what you know is true, and you don't really like re-examine anything.
It's assuming axiomatic. So you assume that something is true because this source wouldn't lie to me, or this thing is true because it comes from God, or this thing is true because X, Y, and Z reason, and it just ends at that point. It's
you've set up a bedrock foundation for yourself, and it's done well for you so far, and it's going to take a lot for you to move it, just because your whole worldview depends on it being solid.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and that's a dangerous and difficult thing to shake with.
Yes, exactly. But even evidence itself is used as a bedrock, and so this is where we get into the real role of evidence, and that is one of constraint rather than support. So people will say, evidence is supporting my argument. But that's, again, a case of foundationalism, the same problem. But evidence's role is to rule out bad theory.
Okay.
So I like to think
that's what it does.
I like to think of it as you gain evidence, you see that it could not be anything but this one thing that you have proposed, right? So you're something that's well constrained has a series of things around it that make sure that it couldn't be anything else.
Okay, I'm beginning to understand where you're going with that. Interesting.
Yeah, so it's really common to hear the language like evidence-based reasoning, or is this backed by evidence, or supported by evidence?
What's your proof?
Yeah.
What's your proof, right? You get it a lot. Honestly, it's the same appeal to this foundation that everyone thinks that they're trying to build.
Okay.
But the very nature of this fallibility we have, every brick we laid into that foundation is a fallible one. That is, you can't really depend on every single brick. And being incorrect is just going to happen occasionally. Sometimes it can be devastating how many bricks are revealed to be incorrect. And that's, you can't let that change you can't let yourself just feel that anxiety and choose to defend that worldview just against all reason.
Because it would be too much work when all of those bricks fail to rebuild everything again, essentially.
Yeah.
So we're fighting against insular thinking. And this is a very interesting time because all these sources of information that we have, mainstream media and beyond, it looks to be, under a lot of pressure, monetary pressure and other forms of pressure, to orchestrate narratives and really leave people with a bad understanding of how things are.
Now, let me ask, because you say things like monetary pressure, do you think the MSM, for example, like fake news or whatever, are they doing it you think they're for money, or
the ratings thing I don't buy. Sometimes yes, but
there's been many examples. I think that it would be a strong argument for sure. I just meant in general because there's a lot of examples where they would just go out of business as well.
Yeah. I mean,
Absolutely.
if you look at CNN's ratings, lately,
terrible, worse than the Home and Garden channel.
Yeah,
behind Nickelodeon, I think.
And Newsfeed, I think they cut out half of their employees, and they're basically going under as well.
Yeah. So I don't because of that. I don't really
BuzzFeed. I'm sorry.
think ratings are the most significant factor here.
See, and that's good. That's good constraint about how you should look at that, right? It can't necessarily just be ratings, because if it was all about ratings, they would be reporting on things that get them ratings, regardless of what it is. And they're clearly not doing that because they're tanking.
Yeah.
So must be another reason.
Yeah, and I think that reason is mostly just political.
Mm-hmm. Some of the billionaire owners, yeah.
Yeah, somebody has something to hide, and we have a big mess to sort out in terms of what we do with the information that we get, because a lot of it is just bad.
Yeah. So what advice would you give for people that want to not necessarily learn from others, but learn how to think for themselves and how to differentiate, fiction from nonfiction?
Well, one thing is just cast a wide net, absorb as much information from different sources as you can, get an impression of that. That's your first guess, is that intuition you have about everything that you've seen. And don't look for justification, just look for logical contradictions, just like you do.
Yeah.
Just look for the logical contradictions, and that will turn you away from bad ideas.
Yeah, when I hate to even look anything without going to at least 5-6 different places and really getting both sides and hearing people's comments and everything else.
And over time, after you do this, you're constraining your body of knowledge ever more, and you get a higher proportion of things you can generally think of as true. You're going to end up with truth in a way divorced from the feeling of having truth, if that makes sense.
Can you elaborate on that one?
Having truth is different than the feeling of having truth.
There's a discussion there's a discussion that we have about belief and how we don't particularly like the word belief, because it implies that is a part of your foundation. So we like to look, as we're looking around, we like to really get into the details. So we say we immerse ourselves in this what's happening. We immerse ourselves in this worldview, this framework, and we see and we tug at all of the sort of logical strings and see where things might be conflicting. And
immersion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. There's also expectation is a good word to use instead of belief. Like you expect this to happen. Another is I guess that Q is he's close to the president. Like that's one thing you could say. And that's actually not really on the fence. You've picked a side. You're just saying I'm fallible. So the words that we say in an Orwellian sense really matters because it aligns your thinking from there on, and that affects your actions.
So I don't like the word belief because, I believe the sun will rise tomorrow, and I have fairly good reason to believe so. But then some people believe in things because of no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
But it's a totally other thing to say, I expect the sun will rise.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or not saying you believe it.
By Orwellian. Sorry.
Go ahead. No.
By Orwellian, we mean that what you say affects what you think, and what you think affects what you say, is one of Orwell's sort of.
Yeah, I love that quote. Well, what did he say? Like something along the lines of, I can't remember the exact way it went, but it was like, it was poetic the way he said it, right?
Yeah, of course, because it's so.
It was beautiful. I can't remember, but continue. Sorry.
Yeah.
I love quotes.
Yeah, you can find the quote. Well,
it was something like, as though, or if thought could affect, or if words can affect. I don't know. I give up.
Yeah.
I'm trying so hard to pull it out of memory, but yeah.
Yeah. So this whole process of constraint, I put it to use with what I do because I'm a software engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And software engineers always have this quirky sort of, it's almost like scars from being told you're wrong by the computer all the time.
Yeah.
So I think of this theory as battle hardened in many ways, and so I don't just come at this with a sense of maybe this will work or whatever.
And please feel free to smack it against any sort of critique that you have.
So far this lines up with my understanding as well. I mean, you guys have gone a little deeper than I personally have thought about it, in terms of constraint versus evidence. But I always try to, I keep at it until I've peeled away as much of the BS as I filtered away the lies and the misinfo as I can.
And that's kind of the whole reason why we started posting videos, is because we wanted to we have thought about this. A tremendous amount of time has been devoted into discussing this. It's kind of ridiculous, but
it's just very interesting, at least.
But it's very interesting, yeah.
We'll make another video.
It's also a great foundation if you're talking about Q to come at this from that perspective and be just highly, highly skeptical, go where the data takes you, no assumptions, no bias.
Yep.
I would love to see kind of your evolution of thought as Q had started and on. That would be really neat.
There's a really interesting theory about Q that we picked up on not too long ago, and that it relates to the actual book Alice in Wonderland, and that 2018 is a representation, like each month is a representation of a chapter of each book.
Okay.
And there's a really interesting part of it in which the July was sort of the invitation to the Queen's Garden, I think is what it was. And also, no, July was the Mad Hatter. So we're getting to the crazy part.
You've got to tell me about this, because I've heard the Q clock, and I've seen a lot of different layers where he'll throw in different kinds of Easter eggs, and and things will stack and then they'll work. But if you're adding yet another layer, because this is interesting, I did a video recently about the whole Alice in Wonderland connection to MK Ultra, and Q did bring that up at some point.
Yeah, he did bring up Alice in Wonderland. That was early this year, I believe. Man, I'm looking for it. Yeah, so if you want, I can send you the tweet.
Yeah, well, any information, I'm interested in that. But there's been a lot of Alice in Wonderland, references, and then the names of the computers and some of the players involved,
But one of the interesting things is that it predicts in August we will get a server. there's a Hillary Clinton's Chippewa, the New York server.
Fire. Yeah, the fire.
Yeah, that fire. And it predicts in August is when the server contents start being released to the public. So that's a really good expectation because it's really fallible. Like if we don't get it in August, then this is kind of bunk, right? And so
how did you come to that? Like what is the sauce, if you will?
Well, it's just this guy saying, it's no more than this guy saying in August the server is going to be released is his expectation.
And is this a hypothesis? Does he have anything?
Yeah, this is just his hypothesis. He has a bunch of, things where he's laying out the past chapters starting with January.
And it's convincing.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't like, the thing is, we're not necessarily saying that this is convincing. This is something that we're having our eye on, much like Q.
Yeah, no, it would be worth looking at.
Right. So we're just saying, hey, if this August thing happens, that's some really good constraint for this theory. Then we can use that, whatever it's saying, we can use that as more expectations of what should happen. Right.
Mm-hmm. For all we know, there could be more little Easter eggs in what Q has dropped.
Yeah.
That provide more constraint for this particular hypothesis.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can piece together everything so fastidiously. Like some of these people do.
Yeah.
They're brilliant. They're brilliant. Crazy.
They really are. Like Serial Brain 2, for example. My God, that guy is beyond cerebral. But yeah, that is a fascinating story. Send me anything you can about that, because if there's another layer and no one's figured it out, or
I mean, it's just like a little thread that we noticed, and we're like, hey, that's pretty interesting. And that's kind of how we got into Q as well. Is we noticed this thing pop up and in the people that we follow, and we're like, whoa, this is a little interesting. And we start to see more constraint build around it as what people call Q proofs, but more constraint about what's happening. And we're starting to say this is probably something that we need to keep our eye on, because it's something that has had all this constraint built around it.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen the Q proofs? All of them?
No, not all of them, but but for me, I normally watch I see it crop up from now and again. I watched a lot of them until I was kind of more or less like, okay, I kind of can get behind that Q has something going on. And that was some of the things that he would post right before Trump would post, mm-hmm. stuff like that, where he, there's no way that
when they're finishing sentences for each other.
Yeah. It's like, okay, there's something going on here.
Yeah.
I just saw one where Trump just made a tweet with a typo in it, and immediately Cabal Punisher.
Yes, Cabal.
She pointed out that tweet, next, when he corrects this tweet, we're going to look at the delta. And sure enough, Trump deleted the tweet and retweeted it without the typo, and it was exactly 17 minutes later.
I remember that, yeah.
Number 17 is Q.
Yeah. There's so many of those things. And then there's the proofs that we don't often talk about as well, the things that are not necessarily written down on paper that are experienced, like when they come out with, or when Q starts talking about this video, and then all of the MSM are beginning to start spreading the news of these deep fake videos, the deep fake that they keep spreading that term.
Deep.
They're reacting to him, like the bad guys are reacting to him. And that's very telling right there.
The deep fake thing was really interesting.
It was a reaction to the Hillary vid, the alleged Hillary vid, which I think was disinformation at this point.
But first, everyone was like, it's the laptop video of a child rape, basically. And then everyone's like, well, no, that couldn't come out. Q couldn't even let that come out. It would be very illegal, and we couldn't watch it even if it was true. Yeah. And then it was like, well, maybe it's a video of the Lynch Bill Clinton tarmac meeting where apparently I think Obama Skyped or something. But, that would be a very good video too. I don't know if it's true or if he just made them react. And that's Q's told us he wants to make them react and then make them make mistakes, which is art of war all the way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that's why disinformation, trying to say that Q is wrong from one false thing, right?
Mhm.
There seems to be this like if this person is wrong about one thing,
Yeah, I've got.
then
I mean, the same thing could be said about Trump himself, because there are cases you could point to where he is probably lying, or almost definitely lying. I'm not too sure about the economy, for instance. I mean, it looks great on paper, but I'm pretty sure that we have some major issues to work out there too.
Oh yeah.
Well, he's done better things than Obama, and if we're using the same measurements as Obama, then it's better.
Certainly.
But those still
are
rigged measurements. Yeah.
And
but I bring it up as an example of where he could be lying, or probably is lying about some things, and yet a lot of these anti-Q Trump supporters are strangely okay with Trump in these cases.
Yeah, like if I caught Trump in a lie, I'd be curious. I would take it in the context that this info is necessary, because I feel like I've built some kind of trust with the Q thing. But if I were to catch Trump in a lie, I definitely would point it out.
Yeah.
I mean, I just take a lot of what he says as just the optics, whatever he wants to project, and it's all optics, and he excels at that.
Yeah.
So, and I don't see it as lies per se.
He's moving the Overton window.
Just optics. Yeah.
There's
oh yeah, that's a good way to say it.
He's doing it like quicker than I've ever seen anything move the Overton window. Like in the past year, we have gone from like nobody's heard. I think it was about the past year. No one's heard of deep state, and in the past 2 years or 3 years, no one had heard of fake news. And now deep state fake news are household terms, and now human trafficking is coming up next.
My favorite thing about fake news is that it wasn't coined by Trump.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it wasn't coined by Trump.
They were the mainstream media.
Yeah, they called.
They made it up. Yeah, and then he turned it on. I remember that. Yeah,
he has a history of grabbing their own knife and letting them fall on it.
Yeah,
that's
he doesn't even.
He's been.
He doesn't even strike.
Yeah.
He just lets them fall on their own knife repeatedly.
It's a mental martial artist.
Some bigger than others.
Yeah.
Well, I have heard he's got a pretty high IQ, so I hope it's true. But then again, he also drinks diet sodas, so I don't know. Those are pretty good. But
it's fast food and whatever.
Oh, I know. Like, what are you doing, Trump? We need you to live through this thing, bro.
Oh, he's old and he's trying to enjoy his life.
Don't croak on us halfway through. If he dies on us because of a Big Mac halfway through the revolution,
and Pence gets in,
or Hillary takes back over, oh God.
Oh.
But that would be like the greatest tragedy of all time. Some Ulysses level stuff there. But I've had so much fun talking with you guys. I've kind of lost track of time. I know we wanted to keep this a little bit shorter, and you guys have stuff to do. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, just we're probably going to keep making videos.
You lagged up.
Yeah, he's lagging a little bit. We're probably gonna keep making videos, and come and subscribe or watch.
Yeah, tell people where they can find you. And
we're at the Epistemologers and Azaeres, Azaeres, and on Twitter, and I'm ThisIsNotTea on Twitter, and come hit us up, and
you might want to spell it out for people just in case.
Yeah, ThisIsNotTea is ThisIsNotTea, and I'm the one with the drawing. I think there's another one out there. That is actually the full name. I have underscores.
If you guys give me a link, I'll put your link in the description for this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's always nice.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Easy way. Well, guys, it's been fun. It's been educational. I've actually learned some stuff from you guys, and you guys have really delved into the depths of like how epistemology like builds knowledge, and I'm very impressed.
Yeah.
I hope people check out your channel.
We'd love to have people even discuss, and if they don't, if they have points that we don't have, then great, put them in, and we'd love to hear them.
Guys, this is basically the ultimate workout for your mind. This is like mental gym.
Meta knowledge is what
it's good for you. It's healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having us on, by the way.
Yeah, it's great.
Absolutely. You guys stay in touch. Maybe we'll do this again someday.